Hey guys and gals, this is Logan Freeman, and this is the LiveFree Investors Podcast. I interview investors, business owners, and leaders in their space who share investment advice so you too can live free. Today, I'm talking with a good friend, the only person that I knew for less than 24 hours and bought me a bottle of Booker's whiskey that took me a long time to drink, but man, I tell you what, I bought a second bottle and maybe even a third. Maxx Krueger. Max, how you doing today, man?
Hey, Logan. Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm doing great.
Awesome.
I like that you prefacing our relationship that I clearly why make friends when I can buy them, I suppose, right?
You know what? I was just so blown away. And that is now what, 5 years ago, I believe. Yeah. Right about probably about 3 years ago, I would say, when we first were kind of introduced. And then Max and I both left that company. We'll say left, but we were both left go, if you want to call it that way. And the day that Max exited, we had a meeting and we sit down and we're talking shop. And about 45 minutes into the meeting, Max goes, well, I'm no longer with that company now either. And I'm like, you just talked to me for 45 minutes and didn't tell me that? He's like, no, I wanted to see how you would, how you were actually doing in your own business. So I would have to say, all my listeners out there, there's that show or there's that commercial with the Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world. Maxx Krueger in my life is definitely the most interesting man. Just hear me out. Okay. Yes, we had the Booker's thing. Yes, he also gave me $100 Visa gift card, that with the Booker's, which is like a, I don't know, $55 to $75 bottle. He also carries around $2 bills, and I'll let him tell you why. He has a cigar company that ships cigars all over the world, and also is an incredible gifter himself. So the most interesting man in my network, Maxx Krueger. Tell us who you are and what you do on a regular basis.
Well, quite the build-up, and thank you.
You're welcome.
It's by accident. I think I've earned that title. It's definitely not a concerted effort to be interesting, or maybe it is. Maybe it's subliminal. And I was excited to hop on here with you because I watch your podcast. I've actually seen a bunch. I haven't seen all 300 or however many you've got, but I've seen a bunch of them.
Yep.
And I've thought, man, there's some pretty cool people that come on here, and maybe it would be interesting if I did too. Luckily, you asked me, and so I was super happy to come on here. During the day, actually, I'm not that interesting. Almost the most boring, unsexy job you could have, commercial banking and finance. Right? This is something I started in college, and I've since about 2007 have been in finance, minus a small couple-year blip that I thought technology was the right move. Mm-hmm. But I'm back home reading through financial statements and income statements and cash flows and structuring
all the good stuff, right?
Responsible growth. But maybe the interesting side is on my nights and weekends, I also sling cigars.
Sling cigars.
I sling cigars.
This is the guy that also came to a bachelor party with a backpack full of tobacco leaves and gave a big demonstration on the difference between this leaf versus this leaf, how the rolling process goes. So once again, I will say, still the most interesting man that I know. Okay, Max, you are clearly a business owner. Who knows what you actually do on the weekends, because I don't, other than take care of those two young boys of yours. But what's the best thing about being a business owner? And you talk with a ton of business owners on a regular basis too. So maybe you can shed some light there too.
Yeah. It's fun to cover it from both perspectives, right? You're doing commercial finance and then also doing cigars, opposite ends of the spectrum. But what's cool about the cigar side, I'll start there because it's way more interesting than banking, is this happened by accident. Because what I really do on my weekends is I hang out with my wife and kids and family. Years ago, I got into this about 4 or 5 years ago because my wife's tricked me into it. And so as you own a business, the cigar piece is interesting, but what's better about it is making those connections and relationships that you wouldn't ordinarily make,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing where they evolve and what they turn into. So with cigars, I typically do private events and parties, a lot of weddings and golf tournaments and stuff like this. And you never know who's going to be there. And this is really a situation of just showing up, saying yes, don't know what you're going to get into because you never know who you're going to meet and where that's going to go. And with cigars, there's always a lot of questions. Well, what is that? How do I smoke that thing? Where does it come from? How do you, all these things. And what we do with that is we tell a story. And that's what it really is. People just want to hear a story. In the end, it's a leaf. It's a big plant rolled up and you light it on fire, right? But there's a story behind it, right? Is it a Maduro? Is it a Ligero? Is it a broadleaf, right? How is it rolled up? Why is it so big? Which way do you light this thing? And so when it comes to the business side of that, it's not business at first. It's just talking, right? It's saying, hey, check out this pretty cool thing I've got. Here's why it's pretty neat. Oh, and by the way, did you know that most of my sales are gifts? Really? And I do a ton of corporate gifting because it's a niche. It's interesting. It has KC on it.
Yep.
The majority of my sales are actually to women buying them for their husbands or boyfriends or fiancés. And inevitably, you never know who that person is. So for me, the best part of the business is actually just meeting new, interesting people.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said. First off is how big it is. I mean, that was the best thing that I heard you say there. I'm making a bad dad joke here. But also the story behind it, right? And the story piece, right? It's like, look, I got an interesting thing, but let me tell you a story about this. This thing has some character to it. And that's all I do is I'm a professional storyteller of commercial properties. You on a regular basis in the banking industry, you're reading a story in the form of numbers of a business. There's a story behind everything. And, I think that we have a lot of similarities in the sense that, when you're looking to lend to a business, I'm looking to acquire a property. I have to understand what the story is behind it, right? I mean, you just mentioned right before we jumped on the fact that, a lot of people might need funding right now, but what do they need funding for? Is it to catch that falling knife? Because that's what you don't want to do. But I have to do the same thing. When I'm looking at a property, I need to understand a lot. The numbers are the numbers. That's fine. But I got to understand, a lot more than just the numbers of that thing. And I need to go see it. And I need to talk with the people who have been involved with it. And I need to go tour it so I can kind of start to see what that story is. So I like that, man. Always looking for the story, always telling a story. Do you pride yourself on being a storyteller, Max?
Yeah, I do, but that's because it's something that I enjoy. And that works also into the banking side is because again, this is very rote number reading. I live in Excel spreadsheets a lot of times, but being able to create a story out of what you see in figures and numbers, it helps someone who may not live in that arena every day, right? An ability to understand the financial health of a company is one of the most vital skills for aspiring investors. It's for entrepreneurs, it's for managers. And this is something that you want to develop. If you're armed with that knowledge alone, especially in the sake of your podcast, is investors can be, better identify promising opportunities. They can massively avoid undue risk. Mm-hmm. And professionals at all level can make more strategic decisions just by knowing their company's health on the numbers. But they also have to be able to present that to other investors and buyers and sellers and others in the form of a story. Because if you just start throwing out, well, here's what my 2020 EBIT is going to be. I don't care about that.
Sure.
Right? I need to know what's the next level. Tell me the story of how'd you get to that number?
Yep.
You made $100 million. Well, how did you get there?
Yeah.
Was it easy or not?
Absolutely.
So storytelling helps.
Love that, man. Well, it's one thing I've really enjoyed reading about is how to craft a narrative and a story. And, it doesn't happen overnight. One thing at that company that we both worked at that you had to do was be a storyteller through Toastmasters. And, I really enjoyed that, actually. I thought it was really good. Push you out of your comfort zone, and you have to get up and tell stories. And I realized I was a very mechanical storyteller. And then you start throwing some emotions in it. But also when you start telling stories about things that you're passionate about, they don't even feel like stories. They're just experiences. And that's where you got to get to in your business. Okay. A lot of stuff going on. COVID, PPP, probably forgiveness. You're working through that with a ton of businesses, I'm sure. But like just with all the different changing landscapes, and it's still changing on a regular basis. Shoot, I mean, we've got an election coming up here. Keeping up with those current trends and opportunities can be a real challenge, especially on how they're moving so fast. And you guys, as a large organization, you have to stay on top of this stuff. So how do you stay up to date on a regular basis?
Yeah, and it's fun staying up to date because going back to storytelling, I get to listen to the story from the Fed's perspective and from the U.S. government, and then I also hear the story of how the bank is going to interpret that, and then how do I make that make sense to my clients, right? The majority of my clients are manufacturers. They're making things out of metal. They're making things out of plastic. They are business owners that have their passions in things like restaurants or other small family businesses, trucking companies, and they just want to know what in the world's going on. Take away the legalese, sure, and tell that story. And so I have the benefit of working for this massive organization, and we have the right people on boots on the ground in Washington. Yep. And every day I have access to those resources to say, hey, here, here's what kind of progress the country has made today, working towards new bills, new legislation. And here's how we think that we might be able to implement them. I was in the midst of working with an investment firm. I was an investment advisor back in 07, 8, 9, 10, when the Great Recession, right? And that was really a credit problem. The banks did that. Yeah. And this time it's a health problem, but unfortunately it turned into a financial problem as well. So we're also working through this, trying to help everybody. In fact, I shared this with you earlier, something that I'm proud of where I work, and I assume this is most financial institutions, but instead of actively going out trying to find millions of new dollars every day and all these new clients, it's really protect your home base. Take care of the clients that you currently have. Make sure that there's no issues. Don't let them go out of business. Try not to let them fail. What do they need? As we work through what in the world this is going to mean for the next 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years. Really what it's been has been an effort to protect, communicate, and really a lot of times my job is taking out all the terminology that is 20 letters long on all these words and really saying, look, it's pretty easy. I'm going to help you through it and we'll get through this.
Yeah. One thing that you said there, and that I have to study a lot of macroeconomic trends so I can understand how to make micro decisions in the real estate world, is there's a difference between, and this is a Russ Gray notion. Russ runs a part of the Real Estate Guys podcast, been running for 20 some years now, but before podcasts were podcasts, they were on the radio. He's always saying that there's a difference between the economy and the underlying financial system that backs up that economy. And you think about like a car. The car is the economy. It might look really good running down the road, and the outside of it looks really good, but that financial system is the actual motor that just, lost a piston, right? And that's kind of the analogy he gives. And I've talked to him about this. He's coming on the show and I'll ask him this same question, but like, what do you say to something like that? Like that, but even before COVID, our economy looked really, really good, but there's been a lot of these people that have said, look, the financial system that's backing up this economy is not as strong as you think. I mean, you being so close to it with business owners, legislation, do you see the same thing, or do you have a different perspective on that?
Yeah. So banking broadly, if you're not a part of the banking world, and same if you're not part of the real estate world, there's a lot of small things that add up, right? Banking doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's really risk management. Yep. So the tools that I have, that my pistons, my spark plugs, my camshafts, my exhaust, right? What is that in banking? Well, that's access to capital, right? When we're thinking term loans, revolving lines of credit, SBA loans, asset-based lending, things like that. But I've got also equipment finance. If, we're looking at, you need to go buy a new machine to pump out your widgets. Right. Treasury management. How are you actually having when a dollar comes in and a dollar goes out, what happens in the middle, right? How can we help make that smoother? How can we increase payment times from your vendors, things like that? Mm-hmm. Merchant services, right? So you're right. When we say I help people bank. I help companies bank. It's different from everybody. It
Sure.
might be financing, it might be loans, it might be treasury. And so figuring out the best combination of how to put those together. And again, the advantage I have is working with a very large bank and we understand trends. I've got a lot of tools in my toolbox that I can put forward.
Max, do you know Anthony Clarevey by chance?
I do not.
Okay, Anthony's podcast episode's coming out this Thursday. He runs a company called Una, and Una works with, I don't know, 10 to $100 million companies on their kind of their purchasing and making sure that, they're not getting, bent over on their purchasing and things like that. Not a sexy business by any means, but he's created a really, really great business around that. Works with a lot of manufacturers and things like that. I'll send you his episode and get you guys connected because I think that'd be a really good connection. Back to the questions. What's the best advice that you've ever received as a business owner and or an investor yourself?
Sure. So 2 parts, and actually it might be the same answer. And this is something that you, I think, probably already know about me, and I hope, is I bring in humor to a lot of situations, despite the level of seriousness, right? For me, there is really nothing that is going to hurt or affect, positive or negatively, that can't be overcome, that, this too shall pass, right? That's something that a lot of people say, but my wife has found this out, and she reminds me of it, is that it's not that I don't carry emotions with me in a lot of situations, but rather I don't let a whole lot of negative affect me so much that over time, it's just something that we'll have to work through.
Sure.
And that's something that I got from my parents early on, because they were entrepreneurs, multiple business owners. And whether it was directly said or implied, no matter what the struggle is, no matter what the hurdle is, or how high it might be and how hard to get over, you'll get through it. And it will be okay, right? And even if it's not okay in the short term, it will be okay. We'll get through this. And I like to keep the mentality of, and this is a little bit more on the personal side when things happen, is will we remember this in a month? Will we remember that this bad thing happened in a year? And if the answer is no, then it's probably not that bad.
Yeah.
It's probably okay, because a lot of bad stuff happens. Just you have to be able to look past that.
Yeah. Well, I'm back to studying Stoicism, and I think that Marcus Aurelius is up here somewhere, the Meditations, but I'm reading the Daily Stoic on a regular basis, and I think that has a lot to do with it, is being able to understand, the Stoics mentality of anything that's thrown at you. You look at it, you're like, okay, that's data, that's coming in at me. Try to keep it neutral, and then you can go make a decision based off of it. Don't respond to it or react to it so fast. Digest it, respond to it whenever it's time. But I think I've pissed a lot of people off this year because I'm really difficult to get a hold of. You too, though, Max. And I think that's on purpose, in the sense that, if somebody's got an issue, a problem, a challenge, and they think it's like number one, and they're throwing it at me, and it's like, I see it, like that's not urgent right now. Being able to stay stoic in the moment and say, look, we will get through this. This too shall pass. I'll respond to that when it needs to be responded to. But, there's a lot of Epicurean people throwing stuff at you on a regular basis, just trying to, take something from you. And you got to be really careful when you start to get some sort of platform, or you have a lot of folks that, maybe even report to you. Be careful not to just pour out all the time, and you got to fill your own cup up. And that's really important during COVID, obviously.
Yeah, I certainly concur with that. It's, again, not an intention of mine to be unreachable. I've got multiple phones and computers. You would think that I'd be able to answer them a little bit more frequently. I'll tell you what has been tough, especially through this COVID, is I think we've all learned new life skills that we have. I found out pretty quickly I am not built to be a stay-at-home parent. Despite that, I did it for a few months there.
That's tough.
And having a little bit of stoicism at all times, it is helpful, but that's not a great concept for everybody. And
sure.
Something else that I live by quite a bit, and I do it in the best way possible, is who are you looking out for, and who's someone else looking out for? When somebody affects maybe a personal friend or a relative or loved one close to me, and they're upset about it, and they just can't figure out, well, why did that person do that? Why did this company say this to me?
Yeah.
Well, who do you think they're looking out for? You know,
Yep.
and I'm not saying that's in the sense of being greedy, but I'm saying that you got to look out for yourself. You want to be kind and do everything you can for everyone, but in the end, if somebody doesn't step out on a limb for you, don't be too upset with them because they're looking out for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's okay to do that.
It is. And we just finished a book in the book club called Sizing People Up by Robin Dreeke. And it's right there. I'm looking at it. And I had Robin on to talk to us about this. He was an FBI agent and had to get Russian spies to give him intel. So very difficult job. And, the first thing you need to look for is vesting. What is the intent of that other person? And are they going to vest in your success? And if not, then you need to make sure to keep that at an arm's length, right? And so, I think that I ask myself all the time when I'm making a decision, what is the purity of intention here? Like, who am I seeking to please? And that has to do a lot with my faith, but also, when I think about it from a business perspective, is this seeking to please me or my investors? And, you have to really think through that because it's easy to get, down the wrong path on those things. Well, this is your opportunity, Max. Just about everybody in Kansas City except for Anthony's, which I got one. I'm making my job to know somebody that Max Krueger doesn't know because, he says he does cigars, but he also, is running a multi-million-dollar company that way I don't even know about, over in, probably Malaysia or something like that. I don't even know, manufacturing.
It's Germany, but yeah.
Yeah, Germany, manufacturing, knives out of motorcycle parts. I don't know what you're doing. I just don't know. But, this is your opportunity to promote somebody on the show, So what other successful investors, business owners like yourself should be on the Live Free Investors podcast?
I've got a couple that really come to mind, but one that I've been speaking with here too recently. He's a great friend of mine. I actually met him through the investing world. He worked with me at JP Morgan for a number of years. Very bright, very smart, ambitious, multiple businesses he owns here locally. And he doesn't know I'm going to give you his name. I probably should have given him a heads up. But his name is Mark Flores.
Okay.
Mark and his wife Abby, they're fantastic people. They're actually down south by you, but they've got a couple of retail locations here in town. Despite some other stuff that he does more on the interesting side, they have clothing stores. Actually, they got some down in Brookside, down in the River Market.
Cool.
And it is truly a small business, family run, family owned. Mark and Abby do all this. They're the real deal. They're going to the fashion shows or whatever it is. I'm going to overstep my knowledge here. And they really evaluate what's cool, what's hip, and then they bring that into their stores, bring it back to Kansas City, trying to make Kansas City cool.
I love it.
So again, Mark has no idea that I'm pimping his name out right now, but I do think that would be an individual that'd be awesome for you to meet and talk with. And I have no idea where it's going to go.
Sure.
But maybe that's half the fun.
That's great. I love meeting new people like that. So I'll rely on you to shoot me over an introduction, when you're not rolling cigars or, making multi-million-dollar banking deals or, parenting two young boys. The only person I know that has kids closer in age that is my age is Max. So good for you. All right.
14 months apart.
I'm 18 months. So I got, you got me beat by 4 months. So good for you. Good for you. All right. Most important question of the podcast. And I don't think I prepped you for this. So my brand is all about living free, and living free can mean from finances. It can be from, personal reasons or mentality, whatever it is. But what's the best way that you live free on a regular basis?
Ooh, you didn't prep me for that. For me, living free is being able to do what it is that I choose to do. Now, there's probably an argument that I work a lot, which I try it's very, very hard to do, right? And, I spend 10 hours a day in front of like 4 screens here.
I got 3, so you're always one up in me here, man. I got to step my game up.
Well, I had to do something. And so I work a lot. And when I'm not working at the bank, I get done there, and I go and I start rolling cigars. And, we've got partnerships with farms in Honduras, Nicaragua, the Dominican Republic, and
Germany.
I've actually got these 6 rollers. They're great. And so there's a lot. There's a lot. But you know what? How I really live free is, now that I've got kids, especially, is I try to, no matter what, every single night there's a shutdown time, and it's family time. Maybe it's going outside, maybe it's reading a book. And my current projects are building customized, modified, hyped up Power Wheels for my boys.
Woo!
Right, and I know, and that to me is freedom to spend my time how I choose. I donate my time to the bank, and I donate my time to cigars because that's fun. But it's really family time. And I think part of the messages that I really love from you is, how do you live free? And that usually doesn't mean working your life away. But for me, it's family, spending that time, getting that time away, because you can't get more of it. You can make more money. I can make more cigars. You can't make more time.
Yeah.
So using it the best way you can.
Spoken like a true business owner. Max, thank you for sharing all of that. Guys and gals, this is Logan Freeman with the Live Free Investors Podcast, where investors and business owners and the most unique individuals that I know share advice so you too can live free. For more insights and ideas on how you can live free, connect and message with myself on LinkedIn today. Max, where can people connect with you?
Thanks, Logan. People connect with me on LinkedIn is the best place to find me. Also on Instagram. So on LinkedIn, it's just Maxx Krueger, 2 X's, double X, MAXX. On LinkedIn or on Instagram, probably more cigar related, it's KC Cigar.
There we go.
So KC Cigar Company.
If that didn't just highlight the fact that you are the most interesting man I know, you have 2 X's in your name. I mean, come on, guys. Like, look at, I'm not joking here. Who else has 2 X's or 2 anythings in their name? So, Max, thank you for joining us today, man. And until next time, live free.
Thanks, Logan.